So, Armageddon is happening. We all know this. The orcs are attacking, Gaskell is kind of winning, and Jarek has returned to hopefully turn the fight around. But with the release of Armageddon Season of Fire, there is actually something really strange going on. And no other Lord tubers have talked about it yet. So, just like with the return of Perturabo, which I did call 6 months before the new Iron Warrior announcement, it is time to talk about the return of Russ. Because what if I told you that Games Workshop is not only creating an allegory for the Siege of Terra with the characters in this book, but they are dropping hints at the actual return of the Wolf King. Now, this is currently just a theory, but I am even more certain of this than Perturabo. Games Workshop, don't you dare disappoint me. Alright, let's get into it. Where has Russ been? Why would he return to Armageddon? And what hints are GW dropping? As per usual, all sources used are shown in the bottom left hand corner, in case you want to check the books for yourself. But first, a quick shout out to today's sponsor. But before I begin, would you like to see something cool that's a perfect gift for yourself or even your family? Behold Novium, the sponsor of this video. Novium makes innovative, high-end products that are equal parts desk art and functional tool. Inspired by the galaxy and spacecraft, these aerospace-grade aluminium pens float around on their base on a magnet without any electricity required. The Hoover pen Interstellar sits at a 23.5-degree angle, the exact same as the very Earth we live upon. And not only does it come in 4 different colors to personalize it to your specifications, but you can even get yourself a premium version with nothing less than a meteorite embedded in the tip. But for those of you who prefer a more futuristic look, here is the Hoover Pen Future. At a full 60-degree tilt, it looks even more futuristic than the Interstellar, and you can get it in a deep black, frost silver or mist blue, with interchangeable tips, so you can find a writing style that suits your needs perfectly. If you'd like to grab yourself a cool piece of desk art or send someone close to you an amazing gift, then here is something from me to you. Use code STORYTELLER, scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the description or the pinned comment, and receive 15% off all Hoover pens with free shipping to most countries, including North America, Europe, Australia, and more. This offer is only available for 72 hours after this video goes live. But not to worry if you watch this video a little later. You can still use code STORYTELLER for 10% off. For the perfect bit of functional desk art and the best gift you could give anyone. You can do no better than Novium. Armageddon, the War World, is where the orc warlord Gaskell MacLeod has set his sights on creating his great war. This war is destined to be so massive and so incomprehensibly huge that both Gork and Marc would have to join in, shaking the very foundations of the galaxy. The Imperium's greatest heroes, ranging from Steel Legion conscripts to seasoned chapter masters, stand in opposition to the prophet of the war. Despite the formidable leadership of Commissar Jarek, the Imperium has struggled to slow down Gaskell's forces. The situation is getting dire. The fate of Armageddon is shrouded in darkness, but the wolf time is approaching. Nearly half of the Space Wolves are waging war on Armageddon, while Logan Grimnar, Ragnar Blackmane, and their fellow wolf lords battle the orcs. They are not the only sons of Russ present. Commissar Jarek has not only returned to Armageddon, but was also saved by a wolf priest, who informed him that he still has a vital role to play in the planet's fate. Among these warriors, the most enigmatic is the Ghost of Armageddon, a rune priest who may herald the return of Leman Russ. The Space Wolves have been crucial to the saga of Armageddon, participating in all 3 wars fought on this planet. However, the chapter has been left scarred by their experiences, a wound that has only strengthened their beliefs that this world is theirs to protect. They view every lost man, woman, and child as their sacred charge to defend in the name of the Allfather. What better world for their Primarch to return to than Armageddon? And what more formidable foe for the Wolf King to fight than the largest orc war boss the galaxy has ever seen? Armageddon burns. The third war for Armageddon has been an unending meat grinder for generations. The once proud Armageddon Steel Legion recruits its members from hive gangers, enforcers, manufacturing workers, children, and just about anyone else who is able-bodied and willing to fight. Service of any kind in Armageddon has become brutal. Those deemed too young for the front lines lose their lives in the factories, and those too old to take up weapons are usually just left behind. The people of Armageddon are martyred every day to hold back the endless green tide. While the misery of its people have reached new heights of desperation, there's not a single soul on Armageddon willing to give up the fight. From the bottom of the hives to the top of the Imperial High Command, everyone is determined to let the orcs know that this is their world. The heroes of the Second War have become saints, figures who push today's soldiers onwards to impossible victories. With the opening of the Great Rift, demonic manifestations have come and gone all over the world. Seasons of Fire have given way to brutal campaigns where the Steel Legion seek to dislodge the orcs, and the orcs seek to conquer more of the planet, only for a season of blood to take the world in a stranglehold. Bloodthirsters, Chaos Cults, and Angron himself have all manifested on Armageddon. With the demon Primarch Angron making his second return to the world, the Grey Knights were quick to act. Through the use of their psychic powers, they called upon both the Black Templars and Space Wolves to return to the war world. Once again, Armageddon was saved, but at a great cost to the Emperor's Angels of Death. But this time, there were no months of shame for the Sons of Russ. This time around, both chapters chose to stay. Helbracht would lead crusades to save worlds near Armageddon, to bring the Emperor's wrath and justice upon the Xenos and heretics. The Space Wolves fought similar campaigns in the Armageddon subsector, and both were quick to join Calgar's call to arms for Operation Imperator. Close to 100,000 Space Marines have come to Armageddon's aid, but so far they have not been enough. Gaskul's Wah has not been slowed. Noble and vicious heroes of the Adeptus Astartes now make Armageddon their grave. Crimson Fist have arrived seeking vengeance for Rin's world. Salamanders protect refugee convoys, while speed freaks race across sand dunes with the Sons of the Khan. Gaskul has created his endless war, with both sides pouring more forces into the fires of battle every day. But before we delve deeper into Leman Russ's possible return, we first must understand the Ghost of Armageddon and the true significance of the war world to the Space Wolves. The Ghost of Armageddon is a name from myth, a story that was half doctrine and half folk tale, of a vast and ancient warrior who stalked the battlefields of Hive Tartarus, always watching, never interfering. A sign that the Gold Emperor's eye was on Armageddon, a story told and retold 1,000 times until there were as many versions as there were tongues to tell it. When they speak of the ghost, they also speak of Saint Ambrosius, whom he guided in defending Tartarus during the Second War. But who is the Ghost of Armageddon really? Well, his name is Einar Gunnarsson. He is a rune priest of the Space Wolves who fought in Armageddon during Angron's first invasion. Now, just a quick aside, I am no expert on Scandinavian names or etymology, but a quick search tells us that Einar roughly means lone warrior, which is very appropriate. Now, I am condensing his story from an entire novel, Armageddon Season of Fire, which I do recommend you read yourself, because honestly, the book is pretty good. But to get back on topic, Rune Priest Einar abandoned his chapter after the First War and Months of Shame. He remains on Armageddon, serving penance, as his fate, according to the Weird and Runestones, is to witness the planet's eternal meat grinder. When pushed on the matter by an Imperial Guard officer, a Sister of Battle, and a squad of Blood Angels, Einar shows he has become disillusioned with the Imperium. Some have called him weak, broken, or cowardly, with one of the Blood Angels even calling him a traitor. Einar does not like being called these things, but also lacks the will to reality to do something about it. Instead, he shares how Armageddon is cursed by the Emperor, and he is cursed along with it. As a rune priest, Einar, of course, can also be very cryptic. such as how he caused Gaskell, the wolf, to swallow the sun. But we will continue Einar's story and its connection to Leman Russ in a moment. Because, well, where did Leman Russ go? What has he been up to over the last couple millennia? Well, 10 millennia. It was the 197th feast of the Emperor's Ascension, a yearly feast to honor the day the Emperor was placed upon the Golden Throne when Leman Russ left. The 13th Great Company, Leman Russ's closest sons and followers, joined him as he traveled to the Eye of Terror. Russ promised his sons he would return for the Wolf Time. After 7 years of waiting, the Wolf Lords dubbed Bjorn the First Great Wolf and began the Great Hunt, searching for their Primarch. Their hunt ultimately failed, but sometimes the Rune Priests hear Leman Russ whisper and begin another great hunt, although none have ever allowed them to find Russ. However, the fate of Leman Russ himself is still a mystery. The 13th Great Company has returned, Magnus has attacked Fenris, and Roboute Guilliman has reawakened. According to the sagas, the wolf time is drawing near. The Space Wolves have been busier than ever before. Njal Stormcaller spends hours with Bjorn to learn more about Russ's disappearance. But what is Leman Russ actually doing? Why did he go to the Eye of Terror? According to the sagas of the Space Wolves themselves, their Primarch is on a journey to the Tree of Life to find seeds to cure the Emperor. A truly noble endeavor, but outside of Space Wolf sagas, the Tree of Life is mentioned nowhere else, leaving us questioning if it is even real at all. Now, if we mention the Tree of Life, we also must quickly mention Isha, the Eldar goddess of fertility and healing. There is a pretty popular theory that if Leman Russ returns, he will have with him Isha instead of some secret seed from a tree. It is an interesting theory, one that does have a basis considering Isha is currently kept by Nurgle to test his most putrid diseases, but we will actually have to wait and see if this can happen. Because will Games Workshop make a second attempt to create an alliance between the Eldar and the humans? It didn't work out the last time, so why would they do it again? Of course, it is also very important to mention the last conversation between the Emperor and Leman Russ. At this point, the Master of Mankind had already died. Russ is grieving his father and believes he failed him. The Emperor tells Leman Russ in a dream that it was time for him to do what he was made for, to protect what the Emperor had created. This purpose of Leman Russ protecting the Emperor's creation, the Imperium, is something the Space Wolves pride themselves on. But there are few worlds they have defended as fiercely as Armageddon. The Emperor also warned Russ about his grief consuming him, something which is also happening with the ghost of Armageddon. So with all of that summarized, it is clear that Russ has let his grief destroy him, to the point he might have been led astray while going to the Eye of Terror. His sons, however, have managed to stay true to the purpose given to them by the Master of Mankind, even if one of them does fail from time to time. If anything, the Space Wolves have proven themselves worthy of Leman Russ. The return of Guilliman did put question of their own worthiness in the minds of many Astartes from the first founding chapters, all wishing for their Primarch to return and make them proud. But in this case, the Space Wolves know they are worthy. Now that we have covered where and what Leman Russ might have been up to, let's see about his connection to Armageddon. Rune Priest Einar's fate has been the same for centuries as he stalks the battlefields of Tartarus. He has appeared here and there to directly intervene in the fate of a couple of individuals, to give them a fighting chance against the orcs, while of course being blind to intervening in his own fate. So the Blood Angels brought him a message. Librarian Jetanius, the son of Saint Ambrosius, was taken from Armageddon to become a member of the Blood Angels. Now that the Librarian has returned to his birthworld to fight in Operation Imperator, he gave his squad the message for Einar. This message was that even the most tangled future can be unbound. Jetanius, even while he was undergoing the process of becoming a Blood Angel, had already been given visions of Armageddon, including the fact that Einar will play a role in breaking the stalemate that is currently strangling the Imperium. Later on in the story, when the Blood Angels complete their other mission in Tartarus, one of them tells Einar his curse has been broken, that the Rune Priest finally fought and changed the fate of the Hive City. But is this true? Well, let's take a look at Armageddon Season of Fire, when Einar takes one last look into his fate. The runestones lay in front of him, their faces hidden from view, the polished bone gleaming in the dawn's first light. Einar Gunnarsson stood on what remained of the Hive's outermost wall, watching the sun's first rays, turning the waste beyond to gold. He waited. Hive Tartarus stood stark and silent around him, a corpse filled with corpses. He had hoped for a little time that the blast might finally claim him. But whether by fate's hand, or merely the protection of his armor, he had walked through the storm and emerged unscathed. He was the only living soul above ground for miles around, but already the winds were stirring the air, bearing it out into the ash waste to dissipate its poison. In a little time, the water would be drinkable again, the bunker seals would open, life would return, human and Xenos alike. All he needed to do was wait a little longer, and the endless dance would begin again, ready for him to take his place with steps he knew all too well. What would he do if he knew with certainty that his curse was broken? Did the Sons of Fenris still make war on this world? Some far-off continent ringing to the song of the axe? What words would they have for him after so many years of silence? Would they welcome him as a brother in arms, or see him only as a traitor and a renegade? The runes kept their secrets. His hand hovered over the stones, doubt and temptation at war within him. What would Sabrine have done? Curse him for a fool and a coward most likely, in clever, courteous words that softened yet did nothing to disguise their meaning. But Sabrine was dead, like the son of Baal, like Ambrosius Rod, all claimed like billions more by Armageddon's relentless hunger. Einar brought the engineer's face to mind, not the painted saint the priest had made of him, serenely expressionless beneath his gilded halo, but the wary, lined features of the man himself, as much accursed by guilt and grief as Einar had been. Rod had lived out his days grieving for a son he had thought lost forever, blind to a truth that would have solved every wound with hope and joy. He placed his fingers on the first rune, every muscle tensed. What if the curse remained? What if they were still unchanged, the skim-shawled sigils arranged in the same pattern he has seen 100, 1,000, 10,000 times, promising nothing but another half millennium of despair. Enough. He turned the runes face up without looking, his eye on the waste beyond, his thoughts swirling with hope and despair in equal measure. Allfather, what is your will? His voice echoed out across the desolation, only to return in fragments. Your will, your will. He looked down at the runes. For a long moment he stared in silence. Do you mock me, Allfather? No answer. Is this a jest? Only the echo and the wind across the rockreed answered him. The runes were blank. Einar threw back his head and laughed. The sound rippled out across the dead hive. A great booming thunder that shook every tower, every buttress, every crenellation, until each corner was ringing with it. He laughed until tears ran down his face and soaked his beard, until he was no longer sure whether he was laughing or crying at all. Somewhere far across the waste, a lasgun fired. Out beyond the horizon, other hives were fighting for survival, Xenos and Imperium alike striving for some fresh victory, some heroic deed to set a cascade in motion that would end this eternal war at last. Einar looked over his shoulder one final time. Hive Tartarus looked down on him, black as iron, silent as death. Then he turned his face to the sun, shouldered his great rune-carved axe, and took the first step of his long journey out into the day. Now, how does all of this relate to Leman Russ and him returning? Well, I need to give a breakdown of the novel and what the characters represent. At its core, Armageddon itself represents the Imperium on a single world. Endless war, endless suffering, mysterious figures in the form of Inquisitors and ghosts alike, story of great betrayal and tragedy. With Armageddon as with the Imperium, Tartarus is terra for our characters. Major Ambrosius Rod died defending Tartarus, giving it his everything. He faced impossible odds and is an echo of Rogol Dorn. When the fighting was done, both got to look to the skies as reinforcements came. Reinforcements that were too late to save them, but just in time to destroy their enemy. Sister Sabrine represents Lionel Johnson. She was a latecomer to the defense of Tartarus during the Third War. She was a capable warrior, the Lady of Trenches. Yet, she had to deal with a horrible act of treason. During her battles on Armageddon, Sabrine would have to face an ecclesiarch corrupted by chaos. She had the help of a handful of militia and a sanctioned psyker. Her battle against the arch-enemy almost killed her. For her, this act of treason struck a deep chord. Not only that, but Sabrine returned, scarred by war yet unbroken, to continue battling the orcs. The Blood Angel Gavriel, who died telling Einar that his curse was, in a way, broken, represents Sanguinius. Gavriel gave his life not just so his battle brothers could live to fight another day. His last actions were to save the last few survivors of Tartarus. Einar, however, is representative of his Primarch. Leman Russ gave into despair and grief when he failed to protect the Emperor. Einar did the same when he failed to stop the Inquisition from murdering the people of Armageddon. In much the same way, both characters struggle with their fate and duty. Sabrine has said many heinous things to Einar, and so has the Lion to Russ. Yet there was a deep friendship and a deep grief when they died. Einar has had to deal with his curse, so has Russ. But Einar has found his own way of breaking his self-inflicted curse. His story for now ends with him taking the first step to return to the route to fight alongside his battle brothers. He even questions if he is worthy, if they will accept him. What is to say, Leman Russ will not ask himself the same questions that when the 13th Great Company returned, he did not, because he did not feel worthy yet. In any case, this is my own interpretation of the Armageddon novel and the story of Einar and Hive Tartarus. Here I present to you my theory for how I believe Leman Russ could return, and I would love to hear what you guys think. It is also interesting that while making this video, they announced a new Bjorn the Fell-Handed novel. Maybe it will give my theory even more weight or completely disprove it. Let's wait and see. If it isn't obvious enough, the Imperium would rejoice with another son of the Emperor returning. The Space Wolves would follow Russ without question. So what would Roboute Guilliman think? Well, Guilliman's view might be the most straightforward. Guilliman considers Leman Russ among the Dauntless Few, 4 Primarchs that Guilliman believes could be unbeatable if joining forces with him. He values Leman Russ for everything he is, but there's one key issue. Both Primarchs held the other in high regard, but the last time they saw each other, Roboute was worried about his brother. Guilliman was wounded before Russ left, and during his fatal wounding, his thoughts turned to both Russ and the Khan. Perhaps Guilliman's concern for his brother would still be present, a concern that could outright grow into mistrust depending on the state Russ is in when he returns. Guilliman's Primaris Marines could also further create an issue, as Russ would be a complete wildcard on what he would think on them. It is also a good reminder that Russ initially voted against Guilliman's plan for what to do after the Siege of Terra. He still respected the outcome of being outvoted, but he also cautiously joined Dorn in trying to outpolitic Guilliman. Whether this will have consequences for the relationship remains to be seen. And then the relationship between the wolf and the lion has always been like that of between cats and dogs. When they saw each other on Terra after the siege had ended, the lion stabbed Russ. Both Primarchs were completely consumed by their respective emotions, rage and grief. Yet afterwards, the bad blood that had run between them since the Great Crusade was finally gone. In a way, Russ would later admit he cursed the fact that he did not know if the lion was missing or dead. In any case, he mourned Lionel Johnson, missing his brother as he missed the Emperor. And once again, thank you for Novium for sponsoring this video. If you need an amazing gift idea for yourself or someone close to you, use code Storyteller for 15% off your Hoover pen, with free shipping almost anywhere worldwide. The 15% off lasts for 72 hours, but afterwards you can still use code Storyteller for 10% off. Links in the description and pinned comment, or scan the QR code on screen. And that does it for today's video. What do you think of this lore development? Do you think Leman Russ will return within the next few editions? Or will he stay out there for a little while longer, searching for the Tree of Life to revive the Emperor? Anyway, thank you all for watching and see you in the next one. Bye bye.